And that is our latest project, the new Superman reboot.
Welcome to Conlangy, the podcast about constructed languages and the people who create them. I'm George Corley, and over in sunny California, we have David J. Peterson and Jessie Peterson.
Hello.
Hello.
Goodness, David.
As usual, David cannot say hello like a normal person.
I think that's what you can conclude from this. Yes.
Oh, I can see my phone. Look, I'm holding it. I can see it.
Also, David has the most stylish microphone. So, okay. So, you guys have a bunch of things that you guys wanted to talk about, actually. So where should we start? I just want to say.
Well, let's go ahead and not bury the lead here. We are running a second language creation conference called Kopikon. We ran the first one in September of 2023 at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And the next one is going to be this October 10th, at the University of Edinburgh. And so we're very excited about that. And so if you're going to be in the Edinburgh area or want to get to the Edinburgh area for October 10th, we're doing a kind of shortened program because it's more like, I would say, a destination thing. It's going to be like a whole weekend of fun stuff. But we're going to have some returning speakers. That would be myself and Jessie and Biblaridian. And then some new speakers from our community. Jake Penny, creator of the Pankashku conlang for Madam Web. And if you saw the film and didn't notice a conlang, it's because the conlang was cut, very sadly. One of those situations where Jake learned that the conlang was cut when they went to see the film. It's the type of thing that happens in Hollywood. It shouldn't, but it does. And, it's not just language creators. It happens to actors, too.
I wish they would inform people about that. Because, I know of one other case, Paul Fromer had that happen to him. And It's just like, why don't you tell people when you've cut their material from the film?
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, there was one experience very early on. The second ever job offer that came to the Language Creation Society after Game of Thrones was a movie called Noah. I was the president at that time, and I created a new competition for it, shortened one. And somebody got the job, Bill Weldon, and he did the work. It was good work. They liked it, but I guess that it was for I don't know if you ever saw Noah, but I never saw it, but there were these angels, 6-armed angel things. I don't know. Anyway, they were supposed to speak a conlang. They ended up not speaking a conlang. And but to the credit of the producer on that film, who originally thought of the idea of having the conlang, they told us that ahead of time. In fact, he contacted me ahead of time, and I told Bill well before the movie had come out that all the conlang material had been cut. They decided that they just didn't want those beings to speak at all, which, okay. He still got paid. He still got paid, so there was that at least. But also, it wasn't like he brought his entire family to the screening of the movie to say, hey, check it out. Here's my conlang on the big screen, and then nothing. Because that is pretty much what happened to Jake. And it is the type of thing that happens in Hollywood for others as well. I've heard about it for actors too, especially on Defiance, a young actress, 16 years old, very excited. This was going to be her first ever anything on television or film. And she had a whole party. Her family were going to watch the episode when it came out. And yeah, nothing. Her character was cut entirely from the episode.
Yeah, that's why I say they should inform people, because we understand that things get cut from films and there's creative decisions there in the editing. But anyway, we need to move on for that. But Jake will be there, and I think there are places where you can see Pankashku now.
Oh yeah,
even though it didn't make it in the film.
Oh yeah, no, Jake has used it in at least one relay and did kind of like a video preview of it. Really good work. And then we're also having Karis Saryan, who's from the community as well. He's actually a postdoc at the University of Edinburgh, in linguistics, and so he's there doing language work all around, and is going to present some of his conlangy work as well. Anyway, so that is October 10th, University of Edinburgh. It's going to be like 12-ish to 5-ish. And then there will be surrounding events. And it's going to be live streamed, and there's not going to be any of the technical issues that surrounded Kopikon 1.
We hope.
David,
right?
You can't promise these things.
I'm going to speak it into existence.
Listen, we can promise we're going into it with more plans to take care of it, but we can't promise it will be free of problems.
I am guessing that this like limited set of speakers is like a part of that, like to limit the scope of it so that it doesn't get too like crazy. Because I know LCC 11 was a little bit ago, and I presented there, and there were too many people in multiple rooms, and it went a little bit haywire.
Yeah, if you're going to do something like that, you need to go more of the convention method, where everybody goes in knowing that there's just going to be a bunch of stuff, but you should expect at least attendance somewhere in like the 500 to 3,000 neighborhood, so that everybody feels like they had some attendance at their talks.
Yeah. But here we have Edinburgh 2025. All this great for people who are like in Europe and the UK to go to. Nice to bounce it around different parts of the world.
Also good for people from Wisconsin if they just want to get out of town for a little bit.
It's a little difficult. Now, David, I have a contact at the University of Wisconsin. I might be able to bring it to me if I can talk her into it. We'll see. Okay.
All right.
We've got plenty of people who could talk here, but I won't promise anybody, because I can't even promise that I'll bring it here, but I will think about that. But so that's really great. And now, as we are recording, registration is still open?
Oh, yeah.
To go there?
Registration is still open. Registration is being handled by kind of like a third-party site through the University of Edinburgh, which is honestly fine by me, because I just did it by myself last time. This is much less of a headache.
Yeah. Now, I cannot guarantee that slots will be open by the time this episode is out. So I'll have the link in there. You guys can check. But if not, there will be a live stream. So everybody gets to watch, right?
There's a special reason why we're holding Kopikon, both where it is and when it is. The when is because Jessie got the opportunity to put together a textbook on conlangy that is going to be published by the University of Cambridge somewhere around October 10th. We don't know exactly when, We won't know until September when the actual publication date is, but it's going to be around then. And so the hope is that we can actually have copies there on sale for Jessie to sign. That will be very exciting for me. And people will be able to buy the book, and it's kind of a celebration for the launch of Jessie's book. Informally, like we had a bunch of people at Kopikon 1, but informally, Mark Okren was kind of the keynote. For this one, that is Jessie. Jessie's going to be the one that goes last. So
that
we'll look
sounds appropriate for a conlangy textbook. And Jessie, we talked about your textbook when I interviewed you last year, I think. And it's I understand it has been a journey. And can you tell me a little bit about like the getting up to this point and all of that?
Little bit. You're absolutely right. It's been a journey, and writing a textbook, writing any book that you're going to get published is always difficult because of, the amount of feedback and the constraints that you may be under, because this is what they're looking for and this is what you had hoped to do if we're going to self-publish and just do what you wanted to put in it. So there's always that sort of back and forth. And then there's also I submitted the final draft, which looking back in my calendar, I actually submitted the final book a year ago. And then it's been, it had to go through editors, external reviews, and then editors again, and then came back to me. And there's been a lot of back and forth on, just everything from the way that files are inserted. And so this, what I call the post-production phase, is, I swear, almost as long as the writing phase, just with all the back and forth and everything. So it is finally now. I just approved the final proofs, but they called them the final proofs. And then my editor just emailed me today and said, around July 2nd, I should have the final proofs. And I'm like, what? Well, what did we just spend a week on? So I think July 2nd is the last official. We'll send it off after that, I think, to the printers. If I understand the process, I think that's the last official one, and it'll go to printers next. But yeah, it has been. And I tell you what, some things that take the longest are just, no, this table really has to have shading in these cells. And then you go back and forth with 5 people on how to get the shading right. It's kind of important when you're presenting things like the IPA tables, as they're typically presented. And it's like, no, those cells are shaded for a reason. I need them to stay that way. I mention it in the pages beside
the
it.
impossible sounds, right? You absolutely need to gray those out because that information is important, right?
Yes, yes.
Let's Can we spend a little time just like specifically like talking about what this is? So like we've had conlangy books before. I have behind here David's
I see a
book.
selection of them.
I have somewhere in the house, I have the language construction kit. Those are like guidebooks, but what you're making, it's being published by Cambridge University Press. It is an actual textbook.
Yes.
And you could tell me what that means about the structure of it. But my understanding is that this will be available for like professors to order for their classes, right?
Sure. Yeah. So, technically any book that is produced is available for professors to order for classes. But this was designed. Right? This is designed for use in classrooms, though the goal was also to keep it hopefully meaningful for people who just get it on their own, that they could hopefully work through the material as well. Because it's a textbook, there's exercises in it. And you'll notice as you read David's book, at no point does he stop and say, okay, now do this, and here's this data set. Let's talk about the
Right.
answers. Like you just don't do that for mass market. And you definitely don't do that when, in David's case, you have an editor saying, no, you got to cut like 70,000 words. So any
Yeah.
notion you have of any sort of extra stuff like that, you take out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's exercises.
Mhm.
There's a lot more walk through as examples as well, where it's like, let's set up this hypothetical language. Let's say here are the parameters we're working in. What would you do? And then following that, if you keep going in the paragraphs, it says, okay, well, here's one way you could have analyzed it and done it, just to show like the thought process behind the language creation. And so, yeah, so that's really what makes it, well, that and the massive amounts of citation that have to go into it, an academic textbook that don't always have to go into mass market in the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. George, you've written academic. And
Uh,
so
Not a
yeah, those,
textbook, but a dissertation.
but that's enough.
Yeah,
That's enough. And so anyway, yeah, there's those are the kinds of things that set it apart from David's book. And the goal is that someone who does not have a background in linguistics to go into it and be walked through the process, and at the end of it have a much stronger grasp on how languages work, ways that they can use patterns to create their own language. And of course, the assumption from beginning to end is you're actually creating a language. And so, yeah, that's what sets it apart. And I would hope that people who find, David's book, Art of Language Invention, for anyone who didn't know that title, and then also Language Construction Kit, those kinds of books, I would hope that you would find this another valuable resource to go along and kind of fill in some gaps, especially if you need more attention to defining terms and, situating
right.
things in context, because I did have more space to do that. And it's, as an introductory textbook, there's that intention of, I'm going to introduce you to the terms and really show you how to set them out. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
The short way, I'm going to put this the short way. If you want to be impressed and entertained, get my book. If you want to learn how to create a language, get Jessie's book.
Right. And I do want to say, like, obviously there's a level of, there's an introduction to linguistics here, but you also have the goal of teaching conlanging itself, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like, what is it more about? Is it more of teaching linguistics through conlanging, or is it more teaching conlanging?
That that is a great question, and a great way to think about any constructed language guide or textbook that may be on the market, to really think about what are the end goals at the end of this. Was it more about teaching the science as a field, or more about this art of language creation? And from my point of view, I think it's more about, my textbook is more about the language creation, because what linguistic concepts are introduced are all there in support of this process, to say, you may never remember the terms for these patterns again, but these patterns exist and you can use them. And here's how you can use them in your own language. And there is, of course, a lot of data sets, but I tried really, really hard to sort of balance the overall scope of those data sets, where examples are provided in natural languages or conlangs, to show the features being used, and to show that conlangs, just like natural languages, can be analyzed. They can be, discussed
Right.
like any other language patterns that you can discuss. And so for me, I think anyone at the end of this would hopefully get an introduction to linguistics. If they had never heard any of these terms before, they would hopefully have a better grasp. But my goal is not for you to then know how to sit down with a data set from natural languages and work it like you would from an intro to linguistics textbook. My goal is for you to have seen some patterns that you can then take and use creatively for your own work.
It's really interesting to have that now, because like most like conlangy courses have been, okay, I'm going to give them a conlang assignment in order to teach these things about linguistics. And then you're coming at it from the other end. And I think as I have seen the community grow, and I've like grown into it, like I think of conlanging more in artistic terms than I used to.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of us were just like focused on making something that's naturalistic and typologically plausible and stuff, right? Before. And now I find myself, especially with my like tongues and rune stuff, like thinking more about like themes and, you know, artistic, you know, expression through the language. And I don't know, I mean, obviously you are going to be teaching a lot of linguistic theory stuff, but I feel like having a textbook to teach people conlanging first and then secondary linguistics is like another like step in the development of the art form.
Right. Yeah, and it's also the way I set up the chapter exercises for each one. And this is where it's like I think I can safely say my goal was to teach you how to create a language rather than really focusing on the intro to linguistics side. Though again, I'm going to argue that if you figure out how to create a language, you've gotten some introduction to linguistics. Like just from the process, you learn something from it. But the chapter exercises are set up where at the end of once you get through the kind of introductory chapters where you're not quite doing anything yet in terms of creating things, you're just going through, here's terms you're going to hear, here's what you need to know about them. Now that that's set, let's move on. Once you hit, so like chapter 3 and beyond, I set up the beginning exercises for each chapter are in what I call squirrelish throughout the book, where it's sort of a guided exercise of, here, I'm going to give you language data that you don't care about because this is a language that's not from you. This is, I'm giving you parameters. Do these things with it. What did you do with it? Discuss it. Figure out why you liked that method best for this language. You know, so it's like a way of playing with language data that you're not super invested in, but playing with language data where the goal is you're creating something from it. Like you're deciding what syllables should be allowed. If you do that, what stress pattern are you going to use and how do you apply stress consistently across these units? And so those are the beginning chapter exercises. And then all the rest of the chapter exercises after that are, okay, let's talk about what you're doing in your own language with the goal of hopefully, if you work through it all, actually documenting the language. And to that end, one of the resources that goes with the textbook is a massive Google spreadsheet of language features where it allows you to enter the features, but it also tells you precisely what section of the textbook covers the information. So if you don't remember, you can, you know, go back to the resource and see how it's described.
Do you want me to, and this, again, this is at your discretion, Jess. You want me to pull up an example to share?
An example of
from the book?
Well, I'm looking at the chapter 9 exercises right now.
Oh yeah, go for it. Is this from the one that says
you can do that?
What's that?
Okay.
If you're free to share that stuff, you can do it.
I think because I'm not sharing a PDF with someone and it's going to clearly, if it's the one I'm thinking of, say proof across the page.
Yeah.
And so,
okay.
Yeah.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
All right.
Should be recorded too.
Yeah, so this is chapter 9, and I pulled up this first one because I think this is a really, really wonderful example. When I taught the summer conlang course at Berkeley in 2017, a lot of the actual homework assignments I gave were essentially, here are some pieces. How do you evolve certain elements? Number, case, whatever. And there wasn't necessarily a right answer that I was looking for. I just gave them the tools and said, what do you got? What can you do with this? Justify your answer. And that's essentially kind of what you see with exercise 9.1 here. I know I'm kind of pulling this on you cold, Jess. I don't know if you wanted to talk about it.
Well,
I can
and
also
I will
scroll for you.
say this particular exercise does ask you about grammaticalization, but I do want to say that I split material throughout the textbook in a way that what I called the advanced sections, which are marked by icons. The advanced sections talk about evolving a language so that if you're ready for that, you can go through that. If you're not ready or you're not interested in evolving your language, or your teacher doesn't make you evolve a language, I should put it that way as well, you can skip those sections entirely and only do the other sections, which is the bulk of the textbook,
Oh, that's smart.
and create a typologically kind of consistent, more naturalish kind of shape of language. But that is not evolved. And so it kind of has this dual focus. But then in the exercises, just to reinforce the don't be afraid of this evolution idea, just think about, hey, what are some words that could lead to grammatical inflections? And if you read through the instructions, you'll see that you're not coming up with the forms. This is the squirrelish language. You're just saying, I don't know, what might a squirrel use to mark a singular or a plural form? What word may end up becoming, grammaticalized if we went down that path? And so it
Like this.
really is a let's brainstorm.
Yeah.
Well, that's as an
That's
added challenge, David.
No, I know.
That's for
I
the
love it.
challenge, but yeah, it's so David highlighted the as an added challenge, make sure none of them are the ones listed in the chapter. So for instance, I mentioned that like children can be grammaticalized to make a plural form in many languages. So don't use that because it's already been mentioned.
yeah. I definitely see like that this is like I don't know. I don't want to say like this is like along the same lines as y'all's style of conlanging in Langtime Studio, where as far as I've seen of your streams, you tend to like go back and try to find a lexical source for any affix that you add, which I don't always do. I do
Mhm.
a lot of the time, but sometimes I just like say, okay, whatever. It was a case affix all the way back. But I see like that style from you carrying into the textbook too. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it does.
Yeah.
And like I said, it carries through in the advanced sections. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you skip those sections, what you would be getting is you're going to create a form. If you want to mark the plural, great. Like think about if it comes after a consonant, is it going to look different than if it comes after a vowel? Make sure you mark that information. And so it's one of those things where you could definitely use the entirety of the material in the textbook and not evolve a language because you skipped those, the cogs, the advanced
Mm-hmm.
sections. You don't have to do it that way. And I hope I lay out, strategies for like, hey, if you're not evolving this, just think about, these things as you create these forms. Think about the fact that you're going to hear these a lot. Make sure they're sounds that you're happy with, knowing that if it's a suffix, a lot of words are going to end in that.
Yeah.
Be ready.
Well, I will say, I've been in contact with Cambridge University Press. I don't know if I should like say this
I,
on the show,
I,
but
I
I'm
think it's
going
okay.
to.
Yeah.
But I have been in contact, and I'm going to try to get a review copy. So,
Hmm.
guys, watch this channel because I may review this, and then there's another textbook that I may review too. So,
Hmm.
so you'll get a full review from me, but it's looking good. It's looking
Well, thank
interesting.
you.
Yes,
Yeah.
from what I see now.
By the way, Jess, you want me to just kind of give a peek at the table of contents?
Well, one thing is, as David had scrolled down, you can see that
Sorry.
9.1 and 9.2, those exercises were both on Squirrelish, again, to sort of like
Mm-hmm.
get people thinking, try this out, try out some basic translations. And then the next exercise after that starts the entire focus on your own conlang. And so, thinking about how does your language do this, and, gives you bullet points or gives you overall things like make sure you consider these things. And of course, throughout, there are definitely options to say, well, my conlang doesn't mark this. And so in that case, then the goal is to say, well, how will that affect,
Yeah.
ways I translate and ways I think about this so that I remember that my language doesn't mark this. Because that's definitely a valid option to, for instance, not mark number at all on nouns. That's great. You just need to remember that that was your plan.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's a good thing to remind people of. I try to remind people, like, whenever I'm covering stuff, whenever we're covering like stuff here, is like, yeah, we'll talk about, number, case, or whatever, and I say, and you can't always just not,
Mm-hmm.
uh, last month we had William on talk about subordination, but one of the things that we said is like, yeah, we have all of these different strategies, but you can just stick a full sentence into a sentence and be done with it, and it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All of these
happens.
things, all of these things are options, and you have to be aware of your options to the extent
Yeah.
that you can be aware, and also understand that you can just not use any of it, right?
Right.
Yep. You just need to be aware of the
Absolutely.
consequences. That's all. And sometimes,
Absolutely.
the consequences are pretty cool. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I never thought of not doing this and what the result would be, but I really like the result. Pays to give everything a try at least once.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
David, yeah, you're free to, if you want to jump up to the table of contents.
Okay. So
there's
we'll get
It's
a little
quite
bit of the
lengthy
structure.
though.
there's a
Like,
there's the
okay, here's
there's
the
the
overview.
short. This is the
Yeah.
brief table of contents. This is just the overview. One of
Okay.
the things, by the way, I really, really love about this book is Jessie devotes an entire chapter to translation, which is something that I don't think a lot of conlangers give a ton of thought to. Certainly, I didn't at the beginning. You're creating a language, right? But often what you use it for is translation. And
Right.
translation is itself an entire art that's separate from conlanging, that's separate from learning a language, and that's separate from writing. It's something that, you know, it pays to give some thought to. And so this is just, I think, a lovely way to end the book and really kind of puts you in position, like, say you go through this from beginning to end, to participate in something like a conlang relay, you know?
Well, yeah.
Right.
That's something I will look forward to reading, because I could use some more knowledge of translation stuff. It is, I always say, like, if you've done your job right making a conlang, translation should be hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having a chapter about translation sounds like a good idea, because it should be hard. So you got to tell people how to do it, because it is hard.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so difficult because obviously having one chapter where it's like trying to walk through examples and really
Yeah.
showing so much just has to be glossed over and skipped. And so um I would urge anyone interested to, read actual entire books dedicated to the
Yeah.
art of translation because it truly is an art. And so the one chapter just gives an overview of things to think about. Just trying to
Mm-hmm.
let students know that not everything should be a word for word translation, but at the same time, there are definitely sentences that are going to look like they were basically word for word because there are languages that express the same basic idea with the same basic kind of vocabulary, and that's okay. It's just, really thinking about areas to inject where it's like, well, we use this preposition in English, but why? What does it really mean? How might another language look at that? And yeah, that is difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm I'm just super, super excited about this because uh, I've read this book. I've said this before. I'm going to say it many times. Jessie is really, 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 really good at uh, at academic writing in the sense of trying to explain either an unfamiliar concept or to explain how to do something. Um, it's I wish I could bottle it, and I wish you could just write about anything that I happen to want to learn, because it is very straightforward, very intuitive, much more so than the art of language invention. Again, I stand by how entertaining the art of language invention is. I have fun reading through bits of that, but I think that this book is much, 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 much better if your goal
Yeah.
is to sit down and learn something about language creation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I will say, like, I feel the limitations that you had when I look at the art of language invention, because this book is small. This book is not
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to fit all of it. And so you just have like a few case studies in there. It looks like this textbook is going to be much more thorough and have a lot more like meat to it, which
Yep.
I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
analyzing.
What
Some other
what was
things
your
to what?
word count, David? What word count were you allowed in your book?
Oh, they wanted it to be ideally about under 70,000 words.
And so that
Mhm.
was what David was dealing with. And my book is definitely in the 150,000 kind of. And so yeah, you're getting almost double. I think even after I trimmed it down, I feel like it still is in somewhere really close to 150,000.
Yeah. Well, it's
It's the lengthy name.
it's tough. I mean, especially when you're doing like traditional publishers, you got to go what the publisher wants. But then, like, you could do independent and write exactly what you want, but there's a trade off in you got to do all the marketing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have like an institution behind you to do all the editing and polishing. So like you hire editors and stuff, and that costs money and also might not be as thorough as what they do. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it is very I'm very interested to see this. But some other things I kind of want to ask about.
Yeah.
So the game that
Oh, yeah.
you're developing languages for on Langtime Studio, I have noticed that it has a name now.
Sure does. Sovala.
Yeah. Which is that an Ingala word?
It is Ingala. Ingala Sovala. But yeah, that's why you have an acute accent on the middle syllable to indicate stress, and also why something that's written in ah sounds like ah.
Sovala. Okay.
That's funny. That's all right. But if people pronounce it Sovala, I think that sounds cool anyway. So that's good. There has been a lot of movement on the game, especially in the last 2 months. That started a bit ago. So what we called like Sovala version 2.0. We play tested that a few times. We play tested that at Kopikon. And I identified some deficiencies. So there's always going to be issues with a game where it's like, oh, you spend a lot of time doing this. And the question is, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. The question is, you as the designer, did you want people spending time there? And in this case, the answer was no. So we actually went to England to a board game cafe, a very weird board game cafe that was in a tunnel that has professional spray painters and in there 24/7, very loud. And I was debuting the magic using classes, and basically it was like half the time was just spent people like reading these spells, figuring them out, or like, you know, the ones who were interested, they were trying to figure out what are the best spells and choose them with care, and they were spending like a half an hour to 45 minutes just choosing spells. And then the other ones that didn't get it were like, okay, I'll just take these, didn't even read them.
Hey, not just didn't get it, but the ones who had chosen non-magic users and so had no choice to make.
That's true.
Because I, of course, in
We're
my
just sitting
beloved
there.
mice and my tanks, like that's what I lean toward. And so, yeah, it was down to like two people at the large table reading all the magic spells while the rest of us waited.
Yeah. So, long story short, huge magic overhauled the system. It led to names that had to change and then change back. It was a whole thing. But one of the things that kind of gave me a kick in the butt is that as a Christmas present, the last Christmas present, Jessie found a professional printing company that could actually print out some really, really good test copies of this game, right? And so then it was like, well, I need to get this thing to a place that I'm happy with before we do this. And so we're getting there now. And that's actually what I've been working on most heavily the past couple of weeks, because the goal is for Savala 3.0 to be ready by the time that we go to Kopikon in Edinburgh. So we're going to play that. And yeah, my hope is, because I wanted the magic system to be interesting and cool, and for people to spend a little bit of time with it, figuring it out, seeing what was best, but not that much time.
Yeah.
And so I hope that it's been streamlined a little bit. It's the type of thing where, in theory, you love the idea of everybody being able to make as many choices as possible to perfectly craft exactly what it is they want to do. But there's also a limited window. And so sometimes you have to just take choices away or funnel people into certain choices. And I think this does a better job of that. But yeah, it's going to be done. It's going to be done, I would say, at least a month, and then we'll be able to get it printed, and it will be the best version of it yet, both in terms of gameplay, but also in terms of how it looks. Very, very excited about that. Incidentally, for a little backstory on this and how it came to be named Savala, right? There's this stuff, the ooze, whatever you wish, that it's actually called, I forget, it's called something different in every language. In English, one of the translations is the blood water. They call it the blood water because of how it looks in the water. It somehow mutated these animals after humans had been wiped out, and the small mammals became bipedal, and other aspects of their physiognomy changed. This is the part that's much less science-based and much more, this is just what I want to happen, and so it's going to happen. The various animal groups kind of kept to themselves, and then it led to fighting. These were called the First Wars. Then there was a period of peace after that, when they realized, what the heck are we doing this for, right? And so there's this period of peace that pervades for a while. And the blood water went away, but then the blood water comes back, and it comes back specifically in a river area right next to where the rabbits live. It emerges in Lake Savala, and Savala is just the name of the lake. Anyway, it emerges there. And so suddenly it becomes a question, what the heck do we do about this? Because we know what happened the first time. And essentially, the various little animal kingdoms all have very, very different opinions about what exactly should be done about it. And so this leads to the second war of the animals, as they're trying to figure out what to do about it. And the poor rabbits, honestly, they don't want to do anything with it, but they're stuck in the middle of it because it's right where they live. And so they're just kind of stuck. And so that is essentially where the board game Savala takes place.
And David, Savala actually comes from Heart Lake, right? Because it's the shape
Yes.
of the lake actually looks like a heart from the air.
Yeah, and this is a real lake, by the way, because this takes place in Ontario, just kind of like north-ish of Toronto. And so we actually have the area mapped out. And so I can't even remember I think it's called, is it called Emily Lake? or something like that in
It
Toronto
might be. It
or
was
north of
something
Toronto.
quite lovely. I remember that. I
Yeah,
just.
it was nice. Anyway,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's where it is. And incidentally, there is going to be, I haven't gotten to this yet, but I'm very excited about it. I think it could work very well. There is going to be a cooperative version of this game that's kind of like more of a role-playing game, more of a Hero Quest or Gloomhaven style game that has kind of like different levels where you start as some of the one-player characters and go through different scenarios. And then at the end of it, if you're successful, and then your guys actually level up, so you keep the same ones, but they get new abilities, which is nice. But yeah, at the end of it, essentially, it kind of falls to you what to do with the blood water. And essentially, what is going to happen is that at the end of this game, it's going to kind of get out in a way that wasn't anticipated, and it's going to engender a reaction that was not expected amongst the insects, which are going to get very large and very angry. And that, of course, is going to be the end of the second war as the animals realize, you know what? We definitely should not be fighting each other. Now we're fighting for our lives.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, work has been happening.
Okay. I just want to know when I can have a copy of Sovala to play with Maria. I think she's probably old enough that she might be able to play it. Fifi will be a bit distracted, and Dorothy will throw the pieces on the floor, but Maria might enjoy it.
So I will be able to answer that question for you depending on how successful the test this fall goes.
Yeah.
And it'll be nice because we'll have some people who've played it before, so they'll be
Yeah.
able to give direct comparisons.
All right.
Yeah.
And another thing so when we were getting ready for this, you guys were David, you asked me like if this would come out after a certain time because you wanted to mention a movie project.
Yeah,
right?
it's true. So as long as this comes out after July 11th.
It should.
Okay.
It should or it will.
It will be after July 11th. I don't have time to edit it before then.
Okay. Good. All right. Well then, the reason that July 11th is important is July 11th is when Superman comes out, and that is our latest project, the new Superman reboot, and things to follow. But yeah, the first one though is Superman. It came out July 11th. I tell you that as if that date was in the past.
Okay.
And it features our new take on the Kryptonian language.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, longtime listeners may know that there is another conlanger, Christine. I hope that I'm getting her name right. Christine Schreier, who
That's how I say
created,
it. So if you have it wrong, I do too.
I've gotten her name wrong before. I've said like Schleier before, and I think that's somebody else.
Yeah.
And but she made it for Man of Steel. She made a version of Kryptonian. So you guys have made a different version of Kryptonian. Does it take anything from that version, or is it a completely new thing?
Yeah. This is a completely new thing. And I'll tell you at the very outset, when we were first emailed about this project, I said, you know that Christine Schreier created a Kryptonian language for the Man of Steel movie. Are you sure you didn't want to use that? And the answer was no, they wanted a new take. And of course, it always has to do with studios and blah, blah, blah. But it kind of, honestly, it kind of seems like that maybe that is either the era we're in or the era we're approaching, where everything is either a sequel or a reboot. And if it's a reboot, they want to put their own stamp on the franchise. Which, who knows, for people who are out there saying, man, I really could have done a better job at Dothraki. Who knows? Maybe 10 years from now, there'll be another Game of Thrones reboot, and they'll be like, you know what? We want to put our own spin on this franchise. So we need a new Dothraki language. Who knows? There may be opportunities in the future. And really, we just have to be at peace with it. Because as I see it, there's really now with ours, there's 4 Kryptonian languages. Starting at the beginning, there was what was in the comic books. And that, of course, anybody who's read any comic books from the 50s, 60s, and so on, and knows anything about conlangy, you can guess. You can guess what that was like.
Probably lots of apostrophes and it's just gibberish. There's nothing to it, right?
Yep. And not only that, it was, made, quote unquote, by tons of different writers at different times. Each of them adding new words, changing the meanings of words, adding, a writing system and so on. It's just it's a jumbled mess, And the only person, who actually tried to make sense of that was, oh my God, help me, Darren. I am so embarrassed about this. I just had his name. But there's a fellow on the internet who basically created everything or took down everything about the language. There we go. Darren Doyle. I'm so sorry, Darren. We've corresponded before. And I apologize. Your name slipped my mind for the moment. But Darren Doyle, he cataloged everything that was in all the comic books. And essentially, he created a version of the Kryptonian language. It was just on the internet. Basically, it was a fan language. He was a really big fan, and kept as much as he could, innovated a lot, created a lot of material. And there was a television show, Supergirl, and
I've seen that one.
Yeah, they did. I'll say they did some disappointing stuff when it came to conlangy. But I knew one of the writers there because she was a writer on something else. She once suggested to them, why don't you hire David? He created a language for us for this other thing. And they're like, nah, we'll just mess up some stuff on Google Translate. It'll be fine. That's what they did.
Yeah. I don't think I got any episodes with Kryptonian in it. So I didn't know
it was
about
Martian.
That. Martian it was Martian.
Yes.
Because John Johns is in it. Yeah.
Yeah. But at a certain point, they wanted to use Kryptonian, and I don't know who made the initial point of contact, but somehow it came to Darren, and I spoke out in his favor. I said, "Look, this guy's been working with Kryptonian for years. He would love the opportunity to do this." And so he actually got to do some Kryptonian translation for Supergirl, the show. And so I thought that was wonderful. Anyway, I think that was actually after Man of Steel, where, of course, Christine Schreier created the Kryptonian language, which got cut from the first one, right? Like it's the visuals are there, but
there's writing, and I think I think that was a case where she did do the writing.
She did. She did translation for it. I know she did.
Yeah. Because I know you've had several projects where they didn't let you do a writing system; they had our department do it, or they wouldn't take the one that you made. But I think she actually did the glyphs. There was the one, the big S is actually a Kryptonian glyph, so that was set. Yeah. But otherwise, she made some other things.
She collaborated with an artist there in the art department, so it wasn't free of production interference. But she at least had input on that. Unlike, for example, Mark Okrand had no input whatsoever on the writing system for Atlantean, which was a shame because there were definitely things he could have told them if he tried.
That's a thing. That's a thing that like the people hiring conlangers need to get is like, you can have art department involved, right? They might. I mean, a lot of artists might actually like the opportunity to do like the visual styling and like work with different writing implements and see what they can do with that. But like, you need the conlanger involved to help design the system, because it's going to fall out of the phonology and morphology of the language in a way, and it has to make sense, rather than just like having art department do an alphabet cipher, which makes no sense in universe at all.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's exciting. Anyway. So a new Kryptonian. I feel that with Superman, that's the thing that you're going to get. Because like you said, there's a history of multiple different versions already. Whereas something like Dothraki, I mean, it wasn't in the books, but it's pretty well established from the get-go in the shows that this is what Dothraki is. Klingon was established decades ago as this is what Klingon is. And the quality of the Klingon in all of the shows is not great, but there's enough of a community behind it and enough like knowledge of it that I don't think they would hire anybody to redo Klingon. If anything, like if you talk about like Klingon and Na'vi, it's like Mark Okrand and Paul Frommer are going to pass the torch to other people who've been studying it rather than have somebody hired to redo it, right?
Yeah, you're probably right. So I guess it remains to be seen. Well, but it remains to be seen, like kind of like what happens with the whole, Song of Ice and Fire franchise.
One thing I would like to see happen is if the current MCU fades out of favor and then they reboot it and restart it, when they get to Wakanda, somebody needs to have the forethought to actually go and make a conlang for Wakanda, because like I have said, it was really good that the actors involved saw that and saw like, why are we speaking English? Let's pick an African language we know. And they went with Tosa. That's good. I still think it would have been better to have someone who has knowledge of African languages. You could have something from an African family, because like there's going to be things in like Tosa is going to have English loanwords that Wakandan would not have because they've been isolated for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So, maybe like put that idea out there.
1,000 miles away.
Yeah. I don't. Also was chosen for like convenience because they happen to speak it. And then they took a writing system from the other side of the continent to use, and it's like, okay, it kind of fits with other world building that they were doing with like grabbing things from various African cultures, but maybe it would have had more cohesion if somebody like actually thought to make something beforehand.
Yeah. Nice thing is that here we got to create the language, we created the writing system. It's going to show up in minor in terms of screen time, a minor way in the film, but a very important way. So, so that'll be nice. And then, we did. I think for right now, I can say is we did a lot of work in a related future project.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully you have not said too much there, but there's some things to look forward to. I am now more interested in seeing is it just called Superman?
Yeah, it's just called Superman.
Yeah, so I'm more interested in seeing that movie now. Because I mean, I've seen previews. It looks good, but it's like, okay, it's another Superman movie. But now it's another movie that I can tell my daughters, hey, I know the people who made the language. And I have said that several times, and like almost always it has been you guys.
I think my daughter is finally starting to get it a little bit. That we work on stuff. Like she can identify stuff, and I still don't think that she really knows at all like what language creation is about. But that's fine. We got plenty of other things to do.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a while. Maria has off and on like had me try. I've had like tried to help her like make a language, but she's 9, so it's not. There's what I can convey to her that she'll understand. But like yeah, I've shown them. They love elemental, so I've shown them the stuff that's online of Tsitsash, right? Which is very, very nice choices to evoke the sound of fire in that with ejectives and syllabic fricatives. But
thank you. It was hard.
It was hard.
Yeah, and especially initially, the initial ideas were literally to take recordings of fire and kind of manipulate them in such a way to try to produce a language.
That sounds like a Logan Kersley project.
Oh my goodness.
People who know the podcast will know that. Who have watched Tongues and Runes stuff too. But anyway, I think that's all interesting stuff. We've done a wide range of things, but I think this should come out during like the theatrical run of the Superman, so that's something to check out. Also, there will be a link to the Kopikon registration. Go and check that out. And
and you know what? I'm going to get you a link for pre-orders of Jessie's book.
I can put that in there from Cade Ridge University Press, just like the direct link. And it's a textbook, so it's kind of expensive, but it's probably going to be a really cool thing to have. And if you are a professor who is aiming to teach a conlang class or has taught a conlang class and might do it in the future, you might want to, contact them for your, like, I guess professors can get review copies so that they can decide whether they're going to require it for the class and stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. But individuals can buy those books too. I'm sure that the lending library is going to get a copy too. So that will be cool. Yeah, the LCS lending library. But anyway, thank you guys for being on. And
thank you for having us.
Lots of exciting stuff to cover on that. We will see you. We'll see you on the stream at Kopikon, or for people going there, we'll see you guys in person, and also, every week at on Langtime Studio, you can tell people that.
Oh yeah, that's true. Thursdays at 2 p.m. Langtime Studio. We're still going at it, still doing the Fox language right now.
2 p.m. Pacific time.
2 p.m.
Yes.
Pacific time.
The only time that exists in David's head.
There was a show called 90210. I don't recall a show about any of your zip codes.
You know what, David? You don't even live in 90210. Like, what are you talking about?
All right. But anyway, thank you guys for being on once again. And thank all of you out there for watching. And happy conlangy.
Thank you for listening to Conlangery. You can find archives and show notes at conlangery.com. And if you'd like to support the show, the best way to do that is to go to our Patreon at patreon.com/conlangery. With just $1, you can get access to exclusive polls for my Tongues and Runes series. And also, for $5, you can get every podcast episode early and ad-free. And now to thank our patrons:
Jessie, Alex Russell Hayes, Alexis Hugelman, Mintaka, Kenan Kigunda, Kay, Grammar Antifa, Grakagrunk, Connor Stewart Rowe, Sylvia Sotomayor, Daniel Quigley, Sigourney Hunter, Eloy Variana Mentoleum, Viren Patrick, Nicholas Norblad, Artifexian, Jake Penny, Miles Ronkovich, Tabby, Paul Roser, Our Table, Nye, Tinguish, Leslie R. Wagoner III, and JT.
Conlangery's theme music is by Null Device. Conlangery is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 international license.